It began on July 16, 1964, in a Manhattan neighborhood that wasn't even Harlem, not yet. On a hot afternoon in Yorkville, a working-class stretch of the Upper East Side, James Powell, a 15-year-old black student, was shot and killed by Lieutenant Thomas Gilligan of the NYPD. The story that followed would travel only a few miles north, but those miles were enough to change New York forever. Powell had been attending summer classes at a nearby school. Witnesses said he got into a scuffle with a building superintendent who sprayed him with a hose after accusing him of throwing bottles. The commotion drew Gilligan, who was in the area off duty. Moments later, 3 gunshots echoed down East 76th Street. Powell collapsed on the sidewalk in front of 215 East 76th. The police said he had charged with a knife. The students who saw it said he hadn't. By nightfall, news of the shooting spread through Harlem. People there didn't know James Powell, but they knew the story by heart. The names always changed, but the pattern never did. A young black man dead, a white officer cleared before the investigation even started. Flyers went up, pastors called meetings, and civil rights groups organized rallies demanding that Gilligan be arrested. 2 days later, on July 18th, the tension spilled into the streets. Hundreds gathered outside the 28th Precinct on West 123rd Street, chanting for justice. The police lined the steps with batons drawn. Someone threw a bottle, another threw a brick, and the noise that followed drowned out every attempt at calm. Windows shattered, cars burned. The Harlem Riot had begun. The unrest lasted through July 22nd. Crowds moved up and down Lenox and 7th Avenue. The air filled with smoke and tear gas. Police flooded the neighborhood in helmets and riot gear, swinging clubs at anyone in reach. Helicopters circled low over the rooftops, the light from their spot beams cutting through the haze. Officially, by the end, there was 1 death, 144 injuries, and over 465 arrests. Unofficially, almost every family in Harlem lost something: a storefront, a paycheck, or the last bit of faith they had in the system. Mayor Robert Wagner tried to stop the bleeding. He met with ministers, civil rights leaders, and community organizers. He walked parts of Harlem himself, promising better policing and better listening. But people had heard promises before. They wanted accountability, and they didn't get it. In September 1964, a grand jury ruled that Lieutenant Gilligan acted in self-defense. No charges were filed. For Harlem, it was confirmation that justice only ran one way: rain against pavement. Out of the wreckage came a few small steps that mattered later. City and federal officials funded Project Uplift, part of President Johnson's Great Society, meant to create jobs and training for Harlem's youth. The Civilian Complaint Review Board debate began in earnest, and for the first time, police brutality wasn't whispered about. It was printed, filmed, and protested in the open. The city had seen riots before, but none that forced it to look this directly at itself. Reporters who covered that week wrote about the broken glass and smoke, but what stuck with them was the sound, the constant hum of sirens, the echo of batons on concrete, and the voices shouting, "No more," long after midnight. Harlem called it an uprising. City Hall called it a riot. Both were right. It was destruction, and it was demand. When it was over, Harlem was quieter, but it wasn't healed. The stores reopened, the police pulled back, but the distrust stayed. Parents warned their kids to keep their heads down. Officers walked their beats with their hands always close to their holsters. The summer heat faded, but the distance between Harlem and the NYPD didn't. Decades later, historians point to that week in 1964 as the beginning of modern New York policing, the moment the department had to start thinking about community relations, oversight, and the cost of force. The death of James Powell didn't just start a riot. It exposed what had been buried under years of silence. If you walk those same streets today, you won't see the burn marks or the barricades. The buildings have changed. The storefronts glow with new lights, but the history sits just under the noise of traffic. Harlem remembers. The city does too, even if it doesn't like to admit it. The night a 15-year-old was killed on a hot July day still hangs over New York. The night that made the police realize the city was watching back.